Our next speaker is going to be Robert Ham. Robert, you're going to take us home, so your last one, so I know it's going to be good. So just a little bit about Bob here. So Robert, I go from Robert to Bob. Today's Robert.
Just don't call me late for dinner.
There you go. So just a little something about him. Robert is a resident of Cheshire and a member of the Cheshire Republican Town Committee. He and his wife, Faith, are the parents of 2 children. Their daughter is a graduate of Hillsdale College and teaches in one of the 24 and counting Hillsdale's public charter schools across the country. So Hillsdale has charter schools, various parts of the country, so it's not just one college. He's currently with Hillsdale College in their institutional development efforts. As a naval flight officer during President Reagan's time, he flew P-3C Orions tracking Soviet submarines. Bob subsequently worked in high-tech industries for 30 years and lived in Asia Pacific for 7 years. He observed that many of his work colleagues in other countries knew more about the opportunities afforded by our Constitution than many of our own U.S. residents. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Ham.
Thank you, Manny, and thank you everybody here for that kind welcome. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's also a very tough act to follow behind Wayne. That was really very well done in recognizing we both have the Navy background. Who else in here has served? Just out of question. And I figured as much. Usually the percentages of people that serve in groups like this the fact that I'm here in Connecticut in exile. My wife has heard this from me before. She grew up here. I left active duty in '89 and we moved to South Carolina. I was scratching my head at the wrong time and they said, gee, we need to have somebody set up some operations for us in Hong Kong, and we said, okay. So we moved to Hong Kong with a 6-month-old and a 2-year-old, lived there for 3 years, Singapore for 3, Japan for a bit of time, then we went to the People's Democratic Republic of California for 12. Faith said, get me back to the home country. So we did. We came back here, Faith grew up here. We're outside shoveling snow the winter of 13, one of the 2 big heavy winters, and she looked at me and said, did we make a mistake? And I said, don't start with me on that. I can ride my bicycle 50 weeks a year in California. I can't do that here. And one of the things that I've seen along the way is Connecticut is absolutely one of the most beautiful states in the country. And growing up in, we'll call it modest circumstances in the state of Maine, having left there in '79, thinking I wouldn't shovel snow again, I wound up thinking to myself, holy cow, whenever I met people from Connecticut in days gone by, they were wealthy, they were successful, they were competent, they knew what they were doing. And then I look at what's going on with the dysfunction of what I see going on in the state. So I think probably, even though my official affiliation is Hillsdale College, I'm a citizen activist. And there's a lot of those folks in here too. Faith will hopefully have a chance to talk to you just a brief minute about Charter Oak, because Charter Oak has got 7 or 8 people in here, graduates from last year and this year's group, and I would recommend that to everybody because it does a good job of letting people get onto the same baseline of understanding that many people already have in here, the Bible, of course, but also our Constitution and things of that sort. So I had some prepared remarks, and I will go through those briefly, but that's kind of a bit more background as to who I am. Themes of sanity and personal responsibility are what I'm supposed to talk about, and that's absolutely appropriate. We've heard a lot about that here today. I loved hearing from Peter Lamash. Wayne spoke highly of him, and as did I. He's just like people that I've met from around the world who have wanted to be here. And how many people really want to leave from the United States? Now, every now and then you hear these idiots in Southern California say, oh, if we don't let so-and-so, I'm going to move. Have they ever done that? No, they haven't done half that. So I'm speaking to friends, and thank you. I'm speaking to friends, fellow patriots, and it's my belief that everybody in here is already well indoctrinated. We need to persuade more of our friends, colleagues, church fellows, and everything else. We heard another theme here about being brave, speaking up. I talk to people in the grocery line, and I'll find out very quickly, I'll throw a line out about something that's maybe a little conservative, or another line a little bit about Faith and I are doing a church plant. And I'll put that into the conversation, and I'll see very quickly whether or not I'm going to engage in a conversation. But that's just me. Everybody has a different talent. One of my, I wouldn't even call it a talent, one of my interests is getting on talk radio. Maybe I like the sound of my own voice, not sure. So Todd Feinberg, of course, on TIC, and now this guy George Colley in the morning on TIC are very, very amenable to our message, and it does help. Of course, again, we're preaching to the choir quite a bit, but we can get the message out saying everybody has to get others to say it. I do believe that we can turn Connecticut around. Why do I believe that? I was in New Hampshire last October. There was a small group up in New Hampshire that kept telling me, Bob, the federal government has given New Hampshire $47 million of our tax dollars for a charter school. But the Democrats are holding that money up. Excuse me. And this particular friend of mine said, Bob, what can Hillsdale do? I said, Don, Hillsdale can't do anything. He called me up 6 weeks later. Bob, what can Hillsdale do to help release $47 million tax dollars, federal tax dollars, for charter schools in New Hampshire? I said, Don, I don't know. Called me up 6 weeks later. Bob, what can Hillsdale do? I said, get together a small group, and so we did. In that small group, about 10 people, we had a lunch on the 3rd of October, and another Hillsdale colleague who had served in the California legislature said at the end of our hour and a half, folks, we can't do a thing until you flip the legislature. Guess what? They flipped it. New Hampshire is now a red assembly, a Republican assembly. And yes, it is only 1 million people versus our 3.5 million people, but I do believe it can be done through targeted work through everybody in here and everybody else that we all know collectively to do it. So I'm working on that behind the scenes, but also overtly in operations like this. Folks, remember the 56 signatories of the Declaration, they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their honor. Let's think about that for a second. 3 million people in the entire continental United States at the time, coming from mostly English, as English colonists, roughly 3 million people. And yes, there were, I think, 400,000 people who were slaves. We understand that. There's all kinds of controversies the Brits would say about that. But they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their honor. It is our responsibility, I see it as my responsibility for us and our generation to do the same type of work because our grandchildren are the ones that are beneficiaries of that. We have to carry that on. With freedom becomes responsibility, though, and that's the theme of what we're supposed to be talking about. And that responsibility, let's go back only 60 years to Canada. Ask not what country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. How is it that a Democrat who wouldn't be recognized as a Democrat in today's world said that or meant it? Well, he was born in 1917. He lived through the Depression. He fought in World War II. He was in office as a congressman, then senator, during the Korean conflict. And he understood what this country had gone through. He also saw the roots of progressivism through his historical studies, seeing Woodrow Wilson doing what he was doing. It's unbelievable to me. I looked at the newspaper this morning. I saw a picture of, I'll be respectful. Vice President Kamala Harris being greeted with open arms by the 5th District Congressman Manny. We really do wish we had you there wherever you are. And of course, Rosa DeLauro, my goodness. And I thought to myself, here we have a constitutional officer of the government who flew into Tweed on our nickel, thank you very much, to be able to say, yay, we are now redistributing our grandchildren's inheritance by opening up the printing press to our King Ned in Connecticut, who has now taken the federal money and bailed himself and, of course, the federal employee unions out. That's all this is. It's a sugar high. It means nothing in terms of how we're going to fix what's going on financially in this state. I get wound up, sorry. To Today we have a national Congress that is completely relegated all of its powers and responsibilities. We have an administrative state. We all know this. We all understand what's going on. But those folks are looking out for it's a husband or wife. They work hard, I'm sure, and I'm sure they feel like they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. But their only role in life is to perpetuate what they're doing and what they think their job is in terms of what we as taxpayers are paying them. That's not right. It just doesn't work that way. Same thing here in Connecticut. I take a look at the silliness going on in Hartford with Mayor Luke Cronin, who is from outside of the state. I think he was also in the Navy. I guess that doesn't go too far. And his wife, Sarah Cronin, who's out there describing herself as a Mexican-American. Who cares? Number one, really? I could go back and say, I'm an Irish-American. No, I'm not. I'm an American. It doesn't make any difference to anybody. And this woman is out there saying, desegregate Connecticut. Well, wait a second. How is it we have to desegregate anything? And it's all just a smokescreen to be able to go out there and run whatever game they want to do. By the way, she's from Houston. By the way, take a look at the money that's going in terms of building around these train stations or these downtowns. It's my understanding, I don't know this, can't prove it, not making any allegations, but I think there might be some connections with some of the building companies out of Houston, Texas, and this desegregate Connecticut. Look a little more closely. We have people like Senator Murphy, one of my favorite. We just ate. This guy is 47 years old. To my understanding, I don't think he's even had a job mowing lawns. I don't think he's ever done anything other than being an aide and as a staffer and then getting into elected office and going along. But he's out there telling us that Trump was a bad guy. And oh, by the way, yes, I'm being considered for Secretary of State. Yes, I'm being considered for this. This guy is abhorrent. And he has the gall to tell us, those that have created businesses, those that have worked for our students, those that are trying to make things happen, he knows more than we do. All he is doing is proving Exhibit A and Exhibit B, Blumenthal and Murphy, that we should never put in the 17th Amendment, which took away the states electing the senators into individual way. Because these clowns are out there working for the National Democratic Party saying, gosh, how can we redistribute taxpayer dollars into Connecticut to go buy more votes? That's all they're doing. As I said earlier, I think Connecticut was once the envy of the rest of the country, maybe even the world. It still is a beautiful place. It's a great place to be. But we've given up local control. But I see enough good things happening with people that I know in this group here, with this group in particular, and just all around the state to know that if we are organized about what we do, we can out-organize what's going on. I really am very well convinced at this stage that we've simply been out-organized in terms of get out the vote, knocking on doors. Yes, there are some issues with voter fraud. We heard from Dominic and Linda earlier. Faith and I support that. I know a lot of other folks here do that also, and they're doing yeoman work, really, really good work. If you have the opportunity, take a look at what they're doing. So why am I here, and what does Hillsdale have to do with this? Well, as Mandy said, our daughter's a Hillsdale graduate, and when Faith and I started going on campus, by the way, they don't take any of our federal dollars or any of our state dollars. You all know that probably. Who in here gets in Primus, by the way? All right. If you don't get it, please take one of the sheets, sign up for it. I promise you, because I'm on the inside now for 2 years, I know we do not sell the names, we don't rent the names. Do that. And, oh, by the way, do like I've done. Sign up everybody in your church group, sign up whatever the civic organization. If they don't like it, they can call up or write, say, please take me off the list. Nobody does that, I promise. It's free. It is supported by people that support Hillsdale College. And it has great people writing in it. The outreach of that in Primus now is almost 6 million people. And here's the fun fact. It's actually 5.6 million, 1.7% across the country. Not a bad number. In Connecticut, the subscription number for Connecticut for Primus is 90,000, 2.5%, almost 2.6%. That suggests to me that we have a lot more people that think like what we do than we might understand just if we go into the grocery store and talk to somebody who's being fed the daily dose of garbage on the idiot box. In addition to Imprimus, that's the original outreach for the school when they finally cut the cord and stopped taking federal dollars. Hillsdale is now doing incredibly well. It's incredibly well-resourced and well-funded, so they're now doing online courses for free. Now the idea there is here. You want to take a course on the Constitution to buff things up, do it for free. They do ask that you put your name in there so they can claim credit for the numbers. That's okay, I think. And quite frankly, it does turn into some people say, you know, I value this, I'm going to send them some money. That's a great thing also. That's part of the deal. But they're not going to say, here, we're going to turn you upside down and shake your money out of your pockets. You don't have to do that. So with the online courses, Faith and I have done it as a modern day study group where you can meet in a little small group at home, whatever it might be, and talk about things that are of deep, vital interest to all of us. In addition to the outreach along those lines, and again, there's a lot of literature on the table. The more you take, the less I have to take home. The most exciting news, and some of you are aware of this, about a year and a half ago, Mr. Presley Blake and his wife Helen decided they would donate their estate in Connecticut to Hillsdale College. Who in here knew about that? Quite a few people. Let me tell you a little bit more. Somers, Connecticut, right on the Massachusetts state line. Mr. Blake created Friendly's Ice Cream in 1933 with his brother Curtis. Curtis died 2 years ago at the age of 102. Mr. Blake died 2 months ago at the age of 106. Okay? At the age of 98, he looked ahead and said, you know, I've got pretty good genes. I sold my business many years ago. I've sailed the world 11 times. I have a collection of Rolls Royces. I've donated countless millions of dollars to schools and hospitals and things of that sort. I think I'm going to build something that's going to be for me to celebrate my 100th birthday. I like this guy Jefferson. I think I'll build a copy of Jefferson's Monticello on my property, and he did. So today, Hillsdale College now owns, call it 100 acres, and a one-for-one replica on the outside of Jefferson's Monticello. We fought a fairly bruising zoning thing last year. We're in the process now of getting ready to start doing seminars, 2 days, 3 day seminars, lifelong learning seminars, like some of the literature talks about, on the Constitution, on the Federalist Papers, on anything along those lines, being taught by Hillsdale professors. It'll be an incredible stake in the ground for conservative values. So we have that going on vis-a-vis Hillsdale. We have the charter school that will be starting in New Hampshire in academic year 2022. And oh, by the way, the Secretary of Education in New Hampshire, he has 2 Hillsdale students, so we know that's going to get accepted and approved. And as that comes up, we're going to start. I will start using that as my stake in the ground to say, dear Connecticut, see what's going on with choice? They care about the students up there. Maybe we should care about our students, give them a choice here in Connecticut. So that's all I have. Manny's over here. I know he's going to bring out the big hook. But thank you for that. I'm available to talk more, and I'll be happy to give you my contact details so we can ask questions. And Manny, I am going to ask, you're going to let Faith talk in a second? Thanks very much, folks.